The Bitterroot Mountains stood like jagged sentinels against the Montana sky, their peaks shrouded in mist, their valleys carved deep by ancient glaciers. To those who lived in the scattered towns along the western edge of the state, the wilderness was both sanctuary and menace. Here, the land did not give itself easily, and those who made their home in the shadow of the peaks understood that survival demanded respect. But something had changed. It started with the bears. A pair of grizzlies, massive, battle-scarred titans, had been found gutted near the outskirts of Lolo. The carcasses were torn apart in a way that defied logic. Their hides, thick enough to resist bullets, had been flayed open as if by enormous claws. Bones were shattered, skulls crushed. The game wardens had no explanation, no animal in the region strong enough to do this. And there were no tracks. No signs of struggle beyond the carnage. Then, the cattle started disappearing. Ranchers along the Blackfoot River awoke to find their herds disturbed, the fences trampled, and blood pooling in the dirt. But no bodies. Just smears of gore leading into the trees, as if something had dragged them away whole. Sheriff Tom Weaver had lived in Missoula County all his life. He had seen mountain lions take livestock, wolves test the boundaries of human territory, but this was different. Animals didn't kill for the sake of it. Whatever was moving through the hills wasn't hunting, it was destroying. The locals whispered about it in hushed tones, avoiding talk of monsters but unable to explain what was happening. Then, the first person vanished. It was a drifter, a seasonal worker named Hank Stover who had been camping near Rock Creek. His campfire was found still smoldering, his tent ripped apart, his truck door hanging open. Blood splattered the ground but led nowhere. No drag marks. No sign of a struggle. Just absence. The night after Stover vanished, the thing came to town. The town of Hamilton was quiet that evening, its few bars still open, the street lights humming softly in the autumn chill. The scent of pine and wood smoke carried on the wind. It was past midnight when the power flickered, the lights dimming for several long moments before returning to full strength. Old Jim Lasky, the town's night watchman, was the first to see it. He had been sitting outside the sheriff's office, nursing a thermos of coffee, when the street went silent. The wind stopped. The crickets, the night birds, everything went still. Then came the smell, a rancid, coppery stench like rotting meat left in the sun. Jim felt the hair on his arms stand up. He turned his flashlight toward the alley beside the post office and saw nothing. Nothing but shifting shadows. Something was there, just beyond the reach of the light. He could feel it watching him. A shape darker than the night itself, moving with unnatural grace. The flashlight flickered, and for the briefest second, Jim caught a glimpse of something impossible. A glistening maw, too wide for any natural creature, filled with jagged, interlocking teeth. Eyes like burning coals, buried deep within folds of something not quite fur, not quite flesh. And the claws long, needle-thin, twitching in the dim glow. Then it was gone. Jim stumbled backward, his chest heaving. He fumbled for his gun, but by the time he drew it, the thing had melted back into the darkness. The silence stretched on for what felt like eternity before the night sounds slowly resumed. But the air still smelled of blood. Jim was not a young man. He had seen war, had faced down violent men in his time. But that night, he walked home with his pistol drawn, his hands trembling. More people vanished over the following weeks. Hunters, hikers, a pair of college students who had been driving through on their way to Yellowstone. The town was on edge. Sheriff Weaver organized search parties, but they never found bodies, just the occasional smear of blood, claw marks deep in the bark of trees, and the strange silence that came before the thing appeared. Then came the storm. A late autumn blizzard rolled over the Bitterroots, blanketing the mountains and trapping the town in a whiteout. The roads iced over. Power lines sagged. People stayed indoors, their fires burning low, their doors locked. And then the screaming began. It came from the outskirts of town, near an old logging road that wound up into the mountains. A desperate, raw sound that sent shivers down the spines of everyone who heard it. Sheriff Weaver and his deputies rushed toward the source, their headlights cutting through the snow. They found a cabin, its walls smeared with blood. Inside, a family lay slaughtered. The father, torn in half near the fireplace. The mother, crumpled in the corner, her throat shredded. And the child. Gone. The back door hung open, a trail of red leading into the storm. Deputy Harris, the youngest of the group, took one step outside before stopping dead in his tracks. His breath hitched in his throat as he pointed toward the tree line. There, standing against the backdrop of swirling snow, was the thing. It was enormous, its form indistinct yet undeniable. A void against the white, taller than any bear, broader than any wolf. Its eyes gleamed in the darkness, twin embers burning through the storm. Long, spindly fingers, far too many, curled against its sides. It tilted its head, as if considering them. Then it moved. Faster than anything that size should. It didn't run, it flowed, covering impossible ground in seconds. The deputies opened fire, but the bullets barely slowed it. Sheriff Weaver barely had time to shout before the thing was among them. Claws tore through flesh. Bones cracked. The wind howled, drowning out the last, wet gurgles of dying men. Weaver was thrown against a tree, his vision swimming. He saw Harris go down, his face frozen in horror as the thing swallowed him whole, its jagged mouth stretching unnaturally wide. Then, silence. The storm raged on, but the thing was gone. Weaver lay in the snow, his breath coming in ragged gasps. He was the only one left. The town of Hamilton never recovered. People packed up, left in the dead of night. The disappearances stopped, but the scars remained. The forest felt different, wrong. The wilderness had always belonged to the wild things, but now, something else lurked beneath the canopy. Sheriff Weaver never spoke of that night. But sometimes, when the wind howled through the bitterroots, he swore he could hear something howling back. Something that had not yet finished its hunt.